Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Kurt on Cougs. Today we're doing a preview, I guess, just for the offseason, kind of putting a close on all things BYU football. Of course, we'll still cover little bits of news going forward through the basketball season, but this is our last mainly football video for a while. So, yeah. Of course, a lot of excitement right now around the BYU football program. This is a team that likely will be ranked to start 2025, potentially even being in the top 15 coming in, which would be a huge, huge deal. Would love to see it. And yeah, still feeling really good, of course, about that win against Colorado. Probably once again, one of the biggest BYU bowl wins ever. One of the best of the Kalani Sitake era. Yeah, just awesome stuff. Destroying a ranked team and one of the biggest bowls outside the CFP. Great way to end the season. And yeah, now of course though, looking ahead, what do the Cougars got ahead of them? We're going to dive into that, but first I'm going to give my picks for today and tomorrow's New Year's 6 games. And so we're going to start with Penn State, Boise State. Ashton Jeanty, of course, great player. Boise State, all around, really good team. But this is a team that late in the year was struggling against teams like Nevada. And I believe also Wyoming. I think they also had a close game with Wyoming. And so, well, meantime, Penn State, right now they're clicking. Especially with the way they looked in that first round against SMU. I think that they're rolling right now. Boise State, really good team, but I don't think they're ready for the Nittany Lion, so I'm taking Penn State in that one. Now going into tomorrow's game in no particular order, I'm taking Oregon over Ohio State. I feel like Oregon just legitimately is the best team in the country, and I expect another close matchup. Excited to see how that goes. In the Texas ASU matchup, I'm taking the Longhorns here. I think that ASU is a really good team. But I do have to say I feel like they've somewhat been carried by Cam Scadaboo. Fantastic player. But ultimately, I don't think they have the passing attack to stay two-dimensional in this one. And against a really good Texas defense, yeah, I see this being the end of the Sun Devils' run. I would love to be wrong. Love to see them represent the Big 12, go further. But at this point, I just don't feel like it's realistic. Texas with that really good defense, probably the best defense this Cam Scadaboo will have faced all year. And so he'll need a monster game in this one. I just don't see it happening, so I'm taking Longhorns. Georgia versus Notre Dame. This is a very intriguing matchup. I expect a close one here. Ultimately, though, I feel like Georgia, they're peaking at the right time, and I think they beat the Fighting Irish. And jumping back to BYU, I'm looking at the offseason. Of course, probably one of the next big things to happen will be seeing which BYU players go to the draft. And overall, not a lot of huge prospects. I definitely see BYU getting some players drafted this year, like Jacob Robinson, Tyler Batty, potentially Jack Kelly if he decides to enter. Of course, would love to have him back, though. Caleb Etienne could be drafted as well. Darius Lassiter. So yeah, BYU could have a decent number of draft picks. Probably later rounds, like 5th to 7th is what I see realistically there. So that's kind of that. And then kind of looking at some priorities for the offseason. I think, in my opinion, one of the top ones is figuring out the QB2 situation. I feel like Jake Retzlaff at this point very much has secured his rightful spot as the starter at quarterback, but I feel like it's important figuring out who his backup is because, as we all know, it's pretty uncommon to actually make it through a season with the starter healthy the entire way. And so I think it's going to be really important to have that backup, whether that's McKay Hillstead, Trayson Bourget, whoever it is, it's going to be important that that guy is ready to step up. Number 2, figuring things out on the lines, both offensive and defensive. The reason I say that, losing a lot of experience on both of those, you're losing guys like Connor Pay, Braden Keim on the offensive line, on the defensive line. All 5 of the guys that got the most starting time. So just overall figuring that out. Of course, BYU has added some really good pieces out of the portal, which we'll dive into a little more later. So, yeah, they're set up in a good place, but just getting that all figured out, I think, will be really important. Other thing that's going to be interesting to see is the roster sizes are getting cut down across the entire NCAA from, I believe, 120 to 105. And so I expect we're going to see a decent sized exodus of players in the spring. And not a big deal, though, of course. I mean, you're always sorry to lose some guys. But ultimately, there's probably going to be a decent amount of guys who, at the end of spring ball, are going to realize they're probably not going to make the final roster cut. So for them, might as well go down to a lower level team where you can get some more playing time, make that roster. So I see that happening. Once again, not a big deal. Also, it's going to be interesting to see what steps forward the offense takes. Jake Retzlaff, of course, now will be going to his second full year as a starter. And if he can make a jump like he did from last year to this year, next year he could be a very special quarterback. One of the very top in the Big 12, possibly in the country. Just working on that red zone decision making and just overall, I don't know, the deep ball could be improved on a little bit. He has overthrown some of those. So would love to see that improved on. And then overall as well, Aaron Roderick, I think it'd be good, what changes does he make in the offseason? Because there were some plays that just didn't work throughout the season. Once again, I think he's a brilliant coordinator, and I think he'll figure it out. I think that, next year it's going to get even better, and I'm all here for it. Really excited. Next up, kind of looking at the transfer portal. What more could BYU get out of the transfer portal? I feel like right now they're pretty well set. They've done a great job on that defensive line. The offensive line has added some important guys like Andrew Gentry. Really excited about that one. I'm at tight end. I feel like BYU's doing pretty solid with Carson Ryan coming in. It might be good to bring in still another cornerback. Of course, it'd be interesting to see if Maury Bamba comes back. That could have a big effect on this. Another guy on the defensive line I think would also be a valuable contribution. Maybe even a wide receiver. But at that point, that's all the needs I'm really seeing for this BYU team in the transfer portal. All right, and so now just to end us off right here, I'm going to give an early look at next year's schedule. The non-conference schedule looks something like this. BYU starts against Portland State, then they play Stanford. Both those first two games, home games. And then they go to East Carolina. Overall, I see all of those as decently likely wins. The most likely loss there, honestly, I see is East Carolina. I believe they're coming off an 8-win season. They just beat NC State in a bowl game, so that one could be a little tricky on the road. But I think the Cougars, very high chance they come out of non-conference play undefeated, coming in ranked pretty highly into the Big 12. For home games, they got Utah, TCU, UCF, and West Virginia. For road games, they got Cincinnati, Colorado, Iowa State, Texas Tech, and Arizona. I feel like this year is kind of a flip of, at least I don't know the outlook I had coming into the season, into this season. Because coming into this season, it looked like all of BYU's biggest games were at home. While this next year, I believe their three hardest games are going to be on the road. Playing against Iowa State, Texas Tech, two teams I expect to be up near the top of the Big 12. Arizona could bounce back as well. That one could be tough. Colorado, definitely going to be a fun rematch. And so, now looking at BYU's schedule for next year, my honest prediction would probably be a record somewhere around 9-3, potentially 10-2, which of course something like that, decent chance you're making it into the Big 12 title game. And so, really excited to see what happens there. It's been a great football season. And, go Cougs.